All right, so today's session we'll go over SQL syntax. So SQL, as we already know, it is very essential for you to understand in order to perform testing, because a lot of testing may rely on your SQL knowledge. So I'll kind of go over what is SQL, what is database, especially different types of RDBMS, which is Relational Database Management System, uh, database keys, example of some tables. I mean, right now, if you kind of look at it, it may gonna look some creepy because you have no idea what is that. But one thing I just want to show you in a moment, that where you guys gonna go and practice that, okay? Because in my website, actually, this is a very, very useful tool, useful website. Before, we used to have a client-based application, means we used to have some sort of software installed in every student's machine, but now every company are charging money for it. So now we are kind of moving towards to practicing it in different website, because those software, if you install, it will cost more money and I cannot afford to buy those software. So that's why I was kind of relying on this website to show you how to write SQL and all this, which I'll show you in a moment. Okay, let me just kind of go back here for a second. Okay, so basically, in today's session, we'll go over them and we'll kind of show you how to write SQL statement or SQL queries, basic SQL queries like select, distinct, where, and or not, and order by. So one thing I was telling everybody, I think during my one-on-one conversation with all of you, that it's all about practice. SQL is all about practice. You may understand when you take my session right now, but if you don't practice, you may gonna forget all this. So I would kind of advise you guys just to practice SQL continuously until you find a job, because if you don't practice, there will be lots of interview question coming from SQL, because they're probably gonna judge your technical knowledge, whether you are technical enough or not, by asking SQL question. They will ask you some theoretical question from session 1 to 15, but most of the technical type of question may gonna come from SQL. So that's why you have to practice. If you practice, then you can say it right away. It's not about memorizing. There's nothing you can memorize in here. It's just practice. So let's just kind of start. Okay. So the first topic is, what is database? I mean, this is the simplest definition I can come up with. Okay. So database is structured collection of data that is stored in a computer so that the program can retrieve those data records by queries. So a very kind of common example that I give always, for example, you log in Facebook, you log in my website, you use your username, password, right? You put them in my website and then you can able to log in. But behind the scene, this information is stored in a database. In my website, there is a database also where it is storing all your information. Okay, you guys cannot see it, but I can see it. In the same way, when you work in any company, whenever you're gonna work on any website or application, any types of data you see in the application or any types of information you see, everything is stored in backend table, in a table or in a database. It's a collection of data. So database is where you store all the data. Simplest definition. If somebody asks you what is database, it's a place where we store our data in a more logical manner. I will tell you what is logical manner, but if you just say that, that would be good enough. So the logical manner, I will kind of explain you what does it mean. So let's say if you have a lot of information, you cannot just put all the information in one place, right? Then you cannot find it. If you just put username and password in one single place, can you find it? Because think about it, when you put something in anywhere, you don't mix everything together. You just put them in separate place. If you have rice, you're gonna put the rice in one bucket. If you have like, cabbage, you're gonna have some area for that. So there's like, specific area you put specific thing. Same thing with the data. You will be storing the data in specific place. So for username, you're probably gonna store the data in some place. For password or for maybe your first name, you're gonna put that information in another place.
Right.
So that's this kind of very easy way to explain what is database. So relational database management system, or RDBMS. So a database management system that allows the data arranged in a tabular form to be related to data in other tables via common field. So this is thing about like, so you guys kind of remember SDLC process, right? Defect lifecycle. We always have some sort of process to build your software or maybe to test something, right?
Yes.
For like, storing data in the database, they also have to follow some sort of rule or some
Okay.
sort of like, theory, right? That is called RDBMS. So what is the like, what is the like, characteristic, or what is like, the main thing about it? Because it kind of store the data, or it kind of save the data in a more arranged form. So the example I gave you, if you have like, rice, or if you have sugar and rice, you will make sure that sugar will go in one place, rice will go to another place, right? Same
Yes.
thing with the data. You'll make sure that data will go to proper place. If you have first name, if you have name, it will go to a name place. If you have username, it will go to another place. So when you make sure that the data is going to in different place in a very like, tabular form look like a spreadsheet, so which I'll show you in a moment, then it call RDBMS, means like, that information is following RDBMS structure. Make sense?
Yes.
So RDBMS is a name of a system, right? So think about it. Every website probably follow different types of RDBMS. So my website is probably follow SQL Server. Maybe another website, they probably have Oracle. So Oracle. So I always try to tell people, think about operating system, right? You have Mac operating system, Windows operating system, correct?
Yes.
For the RDBMS, it also have different types of like, system. It also has Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, and Sybase, and also Sybase. There's another one. So for storing the data, there is 5 different system out there. You can just pick any of them, but most common are those two: Oracle and MS SQL Server. MS means what? Microsoft.
Microsoft.
Okay, so Microsoft SQL Server and Oracle database, right? So Oracle, there is a different version. So always keep that in mind. I mean, when people ask about what is RDBMS, think about like, kind of operating system example. Like, for operating system, you have different operating system. Same thing for storing the data, you have different system too. You have Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, and Sybase. Is it clear so far?
Yes.
Okay. So it's very easy. I mean, those are very theoretical type of questions. So if somebody asks you what is RDBMS, you have to define what is the RDBMS. And can you tell me few common RDBMS exist in the market? You can say few of them. Oracle, SQL Server, but so that's what it is. So, and I talk about tabular form, right? So that's something I said, like, it's gonna arrange in a tabular form. So what is tabular form means? Just like that. So all those data is stored in a specific place, right? If you have name, it will go to the name place. If you have plan, so basically in here, this table name is employee. Employee means, let's say you work in a company, right? That company store your information in one area or one place. That place name is employee. So in RDBMS structure, they call it as a table name. So table name is where the name of the table. Makes sense? So for storing that information, it would be like, what? It would be an employee table. So in employee table, you can expect to find all employees information, right? So what happen if I put like, if I put owner's information in employee table? Is it Does it make sense?
No.
No, right? Because he's a different person. Why should I put his name here? So it kind of saved in more structured way. It's like all those information will go to a specific place. The same thing with the job. So if in any company they have like 10 or 15 different types of roles, right? You want to make sure that those roles is kind of also in the separate place. So if let's say like if you have those roles and if you have this description, like what is that role about, then you can like have those information in job table. So don't just kind of stuck with yourself with just employee job plan benefit, but think about it as a broader perspective. Means when you work in a company, how they will save those information. You will have lots of data. They will arrange those data in more logical manner. Means like this. Logical manner means based on like types of data, they will store the information in a specific table like this, right?
Right.
Is everything clear so far? I'm kind of not hearing anybody
Well,
else saying.
it's kind of easy so far actually.
Okay. So I mean, just stop me anytime, even though you can, if you guys are not sure what I'm talking about, stop me. Don't hesitate to ask question because this is very crucial, and I feel like you guys need to pay more attention in this session, in next 3 session.
Right.
Um, then same thing, plan means like you have some information about like let's say medical plan. Just kind of example, if you have dental plan, medical plan, and all those different information will go to that plan table benefits. So if you think that it will arrange the data in most logical way, so that's called like tabular form. Okay. um So one thing I want to kind of tell you, for example, in employee table, there will be some sort of relationship between another table. So let's say in employee table, they have all those employee information. It also going to have job ID, means like what employee's role is, right?
Yeah.
Means like employee's name and what the job ID is. So if that employee is this, he's probably working on this type of job. But this job information, if you want to know what is that description of the job, so you don't know what the description, right? It's just the ID. Then you have to go to this table. You have to look at the job ID. Look at that. The job ID here and the job ID is there is same. So basically in here, it store the description of each job. Make sense?
In this case, it looks like these are employees' name.
So yes, it would have employee's name here, and it also gonna have some other information like job ID, like kind of relationship. So you have to establish the relationship between one table to another. It doesn't have to be for all the table, but you will have to like make sure that those information is kind of correlated. Because if
Right.
you have the employee information, you want to know if what type of role that employee is gonna perform, right? So
Yes.
those two are kind of related, right? Employee and
Yes.
job is kind of very common relation, right?
Yes.
So that's why you're gonna have another table. You'll have some sort of like common thing between those table, and then you can show what type of role he's playing. Make
Yeah.
sense? The
Yeah.
same
So
thing.
in job table, when I mean when we will search for a job description, then we should see the work that the person will do at this company, right?
Yes, and if you want to know like who's what is the name of the employee, if you want to like join those two tables to make sure
Mhm.
you are seeing both,
Okay.
that's when you're gonna use SQL. So that's something
Okay.
I'll show you. So that's the whole reason of SQL, to make sure that you kind of pull the data from different place and show it in very logical manner, like show it together. Everything is saved separately in a table, in a backend table or in a database. Everything is saved separately. Okay. The purpose of SQL query to make sure you can retrieve or you can find the data in very easiest way. Okay. Because if you have like millions of data, and if I ask you to find one data and give you that that person name can be like a Rahman or something, right? You need to
Yes.
know how to find that. You're not going to go through millions of data to know where my name going to be, right?
Right.
That's why you have to come up with some sort of like language or some sort of query to show or to find where that particular data going to be. Make sense?
Oh,
So
yes.
that's the whole purpose of SQL. It's just to retrieve or just to bring the result.
Or to pull the data from
Yeah,
database.
yeah, pull the data from database. Exactly. and the language we use is SQL. So same thing here. If you can see plan ID, this table contain the plan information, like what types of benefit that company offer, and it also gonna have some sort of benefit. So benefit would have employee ID and also the plan ID. So if you see that the plan ID is coming from this table, it's not coming mistaken. They are also storing the plan ID in this table, and they're also storing the employee who is going to who is getting what type of benefit. So employee ID thing is coming from this table. So basically, they're trying to show everything in a more common sense way, because if they have employee ID here and plan ID here, basically you can join these two tables, plan and employee, to know which plan ID that employee has, right? So that's another thing I will show you. So basically you will have, so when you cook something, right, you will have, let's say you are cooking something, you'll have something in one jar, you'll have another thing in different jar. You're gonna bring stuff from different jar and put that in the oven, or put that in the stove and make something, right? Same thing with this. You have to bring stuff from different place to come up with some sort of good information. Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay. So this is more like an interview type of question. There's nothing to do with the SQL query, but so the primary key. So what is database keys? So if somebody asks you, can you tell me what is primary key? You have to tell them what is primary key. So the primary key is a column with a unique value that is used to identify the unique row in a table. It also not be null. So null means what? Null means blank. Okay. So if somebody said like not null, means that it should not be blank or should not be empty. Empty or blank is same thing as null, right? So there is nothing there and has to be indexed. Indexed mean order. How are you gonna show the information in the table? So that's called indexed. Descending and ascending. Descending means you're gonna start from bottom. For example, if you so let's say if you want to see people's name, who's going to whose name is going to start from Z. So you're gonna see all those people with the Z, then you're gonna see Y, then you're gonna see WX. Like it will just kind of start from bottom, right? That's called descending. Ascending means it will start from A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So you also can organize, you also can show the result in more proper way, either ascending or descending. So what is the primary key? So the primary key is basically the unique number. Okay. So unique number in the table. So let's say if you are working on this particular table, if you have this one in two different places, it's not a primary key, because primary key has to be unique and it should only kind of show one type of data. So one is allocated for what? Term life. Two is for stock purchase. So basically primary key is the identifier, you know. So in Excel we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's so many numbers, and each number should have one unique value, you know. Or it can be unique, it can be a little bit of difference value, that's fine. But the main thing you are focusing on, the unique value, the unique value in the table. That's what it is saying. Look, unique value that can be used to identify unique row in the table. So unique row. So this is the primary key. So it also cannot be null. So it cannot have blank here. So you cannot have blank stuff in here. It should always have some number or data. An example of primary key is the student first name, student class, student social security number. So basically, what is the unique thing? So social security number is unique for everybody, right?
Yes.
So basically, the primary key should be, in this case, social security number, because that would be unique. But the first name can be same for a couple of students or for some students, right? So you
Yeah.
cannot choose that as a primary key because this is not a unique. So for primary key, you need to make sure the number is unique in a table. So in any table, if you most of the table, the first column is a primary key. You know, in this case, it does not have look like it does not have any primary key, because you saw it is everything repeated. You
Yes.
know, so this is called foreign key. So whenever you see Okay, so I'll come to that in a second. So you guys understand what is primary key? What does it mean? The unique value in the table. So the foreign key is a value that can be used to make relationship between two or more tables. So in this table, what do you see? You
I,
see the,
I got in.
oh, you got it now finally. Okay, good. So we are just going over the SQL, so you can see it now. All right. So the foreign key in this type of situation is going to be whatever column is common in two tables. For example, in this table, there is a job ID, right?
Yeah.
So this
Yes.
is the foreign key because
Okay.
this column is also exists in this table, right?
So, yes. Yes.
So basically the foreign key is the column that is kind of common, yeah, in two tables. If you just said that what is foreign key, if you said that the foreign key is a column that is common in two tables, that is more than enough. But you need to understand what is the foreign key. Okay, so that can be used to make relationships. So why we have to have two common things? What is the reason of those same columns being in a couple of places? Because you need to make relationship, right?
Yes.
You cannot join two things together if it's not match. It has
Yes.
to match. That's the whole purpose of the join.
Right.
So that's called foreign key.
Okay.
Unique key. So unique key refers to set of columns which have a unique set of value for each row in the table. So it is a little complicated, but it's not a complicated. It's just more like you need to kind of think a little bit different. So it's saying what? It's saying set of columns which have a unique set of value for each row in a table. So let's say set of columns, right? So this is let's kind of focus on these two columns. So these two columns, let's say you have those two. The set is 15. Huh? So that's
Yes.
15, but that 15 is kind of tied with two different number, right? 2 and 3. So unique key means like it's same set assigned with two different value. Okay. So basically this unique key is 15. This 15 is assigned to two different value, unique value. Same set of columns assigned to two different unique value. Is it clear?
Yes.
Same set of,
সরি ফর ইন্টারফেয়ার একটু অ্যাড
yep,
করতে চাইছি
yeah,
এই যে আপনার টেবিলগুলি যে আছে প্রাইমারি কি
yep.
লাইক জবের জব আইডি প্রাইমারি কি 1 2 3 দ্য সেম প্ল্যানে জব আইডি আছে 1 2 3 4
Yeah.
সো এটাকে ডিফারেন্সিয়েট করার জন্য কি ধরনের কোড বা কি ধরনের জিনিস আমরা ইউজ করি
So first of all, I think everything is coming from the primary key. So let's say this is the job ID, right? This job ID basically coming from here. So you will have two different places. In two different places, you're gonna have the information where all those jobs are, right? So where you save the information for all available jobs. Then you're gonna use some of this information to relate which employee is performing what job. You are not going to do that. In a real company, there will be like database administrator or your developer. They will probably do that. They will already going to assign, or they will already going to store those data for you. Like in your testing, if you want to know, let's for an example, if you want to know the person who is working as McDaddy or something, right? You want to know the employee who is working for this type of job, right? So in this case, your job is to make sure, or you have to find that employee who is going to work on this type of job. So in this case, you will be making the relationship. You will be basically going to join those two pieces of information, and then you will retrieve the result. So the differentiate is more like the developer who is going to store this information. Then you will use this information to retrieve the data that are in these two different tables. That's what it is. um, so So yeah, so the unique key is basically what I said, a unique set of values, and it has different value, right? Unique set of columns has different value. I think it will make more sense, guys, when you guys see the
Or you
example.
can say identical column or something like that.
Identical column means I mean, the thing is, like, we cannot say identical column because those two column has two different types of data. You know, one is employee ID, one is plan ID. It is
The
unique.
employee ID, in this case, employee IDs are same, but the plan ID is
Yeah, this
different.
is
So
the unique set. Set is what, two
yeah.
or more, right? Two
Yes.
is set. So unique set of value assigned with two different unique values. So basically, this unique, I mean, two unique set assigned with two different value. That's the unique key. But you know, don't worry about too much this. I would say if you know the primary key and foreign key, that would be good enough, because foreign key and primary key, that's what most of the interview are going to ask. But this is just for your conceptual knowledge. Okay. So what is SQL? I think most of you guys already know what is SQL. SQL is a language. For example, if you build or if you want to develop an application, you use what programming language, right? You use programming language like Java, C#, C++, those different programming language to build the software or application. In this situation, in order to get the data from the database, you will use a different language. It's called SQL language. It referred to as structured query language. Using this language, you're going to retrieve the data from the table and it will show it in front of you. Okay, so that's the SQL. The SQL language is understandable by RDBMS. So you already know what is RDBMS, right? So these different operating system RDBMS, they only know the SQL language. So in order to communicate with this RDBMS, you need to have SQL. So so if you're a developer, in order to communicate with the application, you need to know the programming language. But in this case, you need to know the SQL language, and that's what you need to be good at. Okay, SQL. So understandable by RDBMS in accessing the data from database using retrieval tool. So we talk about some tool training, right? So so in real job, you won't be writing the SQL queries in this type of format, right? This is a website. This is just for your practice. You will be writing this type of query in a tool, and that tool name is what? That tool name is the SQL data retrieval tool. Okay, most of the time I would say if you just know how to write SQL, it's much easier to write it in here. They will give you the access. You just have to kind of perform those SQL query or languages, however way you are writing it, and then you will retrieve the data. There will be some sort of setup thing that your help desk or in a company, whenever you go to a new company, they will be doing it for you. They will setting up this tool. They will setting up all those different connection, like the way you have to connect to that RDBMS. They will do the setup. Your job is to go to those different database like RDBMS and see those information. So for example, those 4 tables exist in what? RDBMS. You can go to that RDBMS and you can able to see those 4 tables and see what type of data it gets stored, right? So you can do that. Just kind of like viewing it, right? And then if you want to pull those different data together, then you have to write SQL query. That's what you need to learn. So the tool we have MS SQL, Toad, Razor SQL. Uh, so if somebody said that what is Toad, you have to say what? You have to say it is data retrieval tool, because using that tool you can able to retrieve the data. So think about Microsoft Excel. What is that? What is Excel? Excel, which help us to what? Which help us to tabulate the data, or which help us to write stuff, right? We are using Excel for our test case creation, for our different, for our other things, right? But some company use Excel for reporting. They also construct the graph. There's so many cool things that Excel offer. So same thing with this type of this type of tool. It allow you to run SQL queries so you can able to retrieve the data. That's what it is doing. So for your interview purpose, you probably can say, yes, I know Toad. It is a data retrieval tool. You can say that. And there's another one called Microsoft SQL Server. So the most commons are those four: Microsoft SQL Server, Razor SQL, Toad, MySQL. Those are very common data retrieval tool. So the difference, so there where most of the people get confused. People get confused with RDBMS and data retrieval tool. So RDBMS and data retrieval tool are two different things. RDBMS is a system, just like operating system, like Microsoft Windows, Mac operating system. But data retrieval tool is different. It's a MySQL, Toad, and Razor SQL. So using those different tools, you can able to retrieve the data from RDBMS. That's the whole thing. All right, let me just mute all. Okay, so whenever whoever going to talk, please unmute and talk. Okay. All right, so this is the difference. So what is SQL, Toad, Razor SQL, Microsoft SQL Server? So you will know different types of retrieval tool.
There's only 4 tools, or there's more?
No, there are more, but those four are most common.
Okay.
There's so many tools. I mean, every single place may gonna have different types of tool, but you would see most of the company they're using. In my company, they use Toad. They also use Razor SQL, and so far I think I've been with 4 different companies. Everybody use Toad. This is very common. So DDL, data definition language. So this is where you are going to step into writing SQL query, right? So far everything is what? Conceptual, like what is this, what is that, how those two things are related and all this, right? So now you are assuming you already know what those are. Now your job is to write the SQL query. So in SQL, they also kind of break down different syntax. Syntax is, you can call it name, right?
Yeah.
So I would say it's more the language, SQL language, whatever SQL language able to understand. So if somebody took some Java programming language class, they probably have specific variable name, specific syntax name, or all this different thing, right? Same thing with the SQL. They also have unique name. Means those syntax or those thing will be used for different purpose. Okay. So those things you have to probably need to memorize or understand, however way you have to do it. So there is a DDL, which is called data definition language. So using those type of syntax or those type of statement, you can able to define the data. So what does it mean, define? Define means whenever you're going to manipulate or whenever you're going to update or alter something here, like in this table, if you want to, let's say you want to create this table, right? Which you are not going to do it. I mean, let me be very clear. In the real job, you are not going to create anything. You don't have to create this table. You don't have to insert anything in this table. It's not your job,
Right.
but you need to know how to do that, right? You need to know how those database admin people create the table, or how they actually insert, or how they actually add these unique rows in a table. You need to know that. So that's why you need to understand what those different syntaxes are and how you have to write the SQL queries using that. Okay. So if you want to create this table, or if you want to alter something, or if you want to delete stuff from here, those stuff called DDL, data definition language. It's called data definition language. Means you are going to use those syntaxes to alter or to make changes in the table, because you are going to manipulate something, right? You are going to either create a table, you are going to delete, you are going to drop a table or something like that. So whenever you do such thing, it's going to fall under DDL. Okay. So the syntaxes are broken down into two different categories. So you remember the testing types, so you kind of understand like the structural testing, non-functional testing, those different category. Same thing with the SQL syntax, they fall into three different category. Okay, those syntaxes, there will be like, there will be like 100 syntaxes. There probably like more than that. You don't need to know all of them. You probably need to know 20 or 25 syntaxes, how those are being used. You need to know that. But those 25 syntaxes that you have to know, they kind of fall into three different categories. Okay, so one category is called DDL. Okay, so DDL is called data definition language, and uh, in this category you will have 6 different syntax: create, drop, alter, truncate, comment, rename. Those are 6 different syntaxes. So create, basically you are creating the table. So when you create an object, so object means structure, right? Object, structure are same thing. When you create a table, they also call it object. The object can be the table itself, or the object can be the name of the data, or it can be the column itself. Okay, you can also add a column in a table using the DDL syntaxes. Drop means delete objects. So instead of object, you can say table. That's fine. You know the table, right? What is the table means? You can say delete table from the database. Okay, so you can, using this drop, you can able to delete that. Alter. So alter means you have to change the data type. You have to change the data or column information. For example, in here is saying the job description. You may want to alter, or you may want to change it to job information or something. So if you want to alter something, you're going to use that alter syntax. Truncate, basically going to remove everything, is going to wipe out every single piece of data from the table. So remove all records from a table, including all spaces allocated. So it will going to delete everything. That's what it is. So comment means it will add a comment. So I'm not going to show you how to write that, because that's something you're not going to do. It's more like database admin people, but you need to know what those different syntaxes are. Truncate, drop. So if somebody asks you, do you know what is the drop syntax? You have to say yes. It's basically going to delete the tables from the database. So for your interview purpose, you have to know what is those different syntaxes are. Clear?
Kind of.
Yeah, it's all practice. I mean, it's just if once you run through them, you will know. So another is data manipulation language. Manipulation means what? You will use this data and you will going to do some sort of update. You will do some sort of modification of this data. So basically, sorry, not data value, basically not the structure. So structure means what? Structure means the column name, table name. The column name, table name, it's gonna fall under what structure, right? It is table structure. Every single table would have column name, table name, and this type of thing, right? But for the DML, data manipulation language, what you are going to focus on, you're going to focus on the value in the column. You're not worrying about the structure, but instead you are going to worry about the data within. So in this table, if the data is probably three lots of data, for example, you are only going to worry about how to modify or how to update this type of data. And there are 4 different syntaxes are out there. Most commonly used is select. You will hear it many times. Select. So this is a very common one. Select, basically what? Retrieve the data from a database. So that's what we are caring about, right? We have to retrieve the data from database. So if you kind of go back about the testing type, right? Backend testing. Remember I said that I will kind of explain you what is the backend testing. So the backend testing, basically, so whatever you are kind of seeing in the front end, you have to make sure those are showing in the backend table. So if the front end is showing your first name, you have to kind of find whether this information are also stored in the table, right? So how are you going to find that information? To find that information, you have to write select whatever is that, and it will give you this information. So you have to write this syntax. So by using the SQL queries, you are validating the, the backend table or backend data. I'll kind of tell you how to write that, but that's how the backend testing happen. Basically running by SQL queries. Insert, this is another good one. Insert is basically when you have to insert a row, right? So let's say 1 2 3 here. If you want to insert something here, let's say 4 with another name, you can do that. Okay, but from my real life example, I would say you don't have to do that in the real project, because you only worrying about select, because you don't have to insert anything, because those will be done by your developer. They will be doing it for you, but you need to know how to write it, right? So that's the thing you have to worry about. Update, so insert means it's going to insert a row into a table. Update, so if you have to manipulate something, so instead of Rudel, if you want to put your name in it, so you have to use that update syntax. Using this update syntax, you can able to change it to different thing for this column, or sorry, this row. Make sense? I will tell you how to write it, but you need to know what is the purpose of each syntax. That's the one thing I want to focus you now. Just understand what is this used for, what is this used for, what is this used for, what is this used for. But how to write it, that's whole different thing. I'll show you later. And now this one here is delete data from the table. So delete means it's very easy, right? It will basically delete everything from the table, and you have to give some condition. So let's say you want to delete this row, you want to get rid of this whole thing, sorry, the number 3.
Okay.
Using the delete syntax, you can able to just delete this one. Okay, but you remember the truncate doing what? Remove all records, including everything. It will truncate. If you use truncate, it will delete, it will wipe out everything. But if you use delete, it will only delete whatever you're gonna say. You can say that, I just want to delete the person or the job that that name is Ronaldo or something, right? So using that delete syntax, you only can delete this one. You don't have to worry about those 2 things, because those 2 still can remain there. So that's the delete. DCL, I don't think so. I never done that before. I never done that in my current role or any role. So this is more like interview purpose. So you need to know 3 categories, right? We talk about 3 different categories. So DCL is another type of category. Is called data control language. It is used to control data. Means so if you want to, let's say you are working in a company, right? You are working in a company and you have given access to the RDBMS, right? RDBMS means this one. In this RDBMS, they have lots of information. They would have your information there. They would have customers' income. They're probably gonna have their manager's income, like all those information. They're probably gonna have there. They don't want you to see those information. Some of those information are critical. You don't want, they don't want to show you how much your manager is making, because those information are also going to be in that database. So in this type of situation, they use some specific syntax, grant. They're probably going to use the grant syntax. Again, this is not something you will do. The database admin people, they're the one who is going to do that. They will use grant syntax. So that will give user access privilege. Means using the grant, they will either give you the access to see some specific thing, and then revoke means they can also get rid of your access from a given thing. So for example, in a real project, you are working on a project which for which you need to have access to employee information. So let's say you are working on a specific thing that like course, right? You need to have access to all the course that are available in this site for a specific time, right? So they will grant you the access for that particular database or for those tables for a given time. So how they're gonna do that? They will use that grant syntax. They will use that grant syntax to give you the access. Then they will use the revoke to do what? They will withdraw the access. Once you are done, that's it. You don't have to have access, right? Then they will get rid of the access from you. So just kind of keep that in mind. What is the 3 different categories? You don't have to worry about this thing, how to write it, most of the things. So what are you going to worry about? Select, and select type of like, syntaxes you're going to worry about. So under select, there are bunch of different syntaxes like you have to use, which I will show you in a second.
It's just going deeper and deeper, actually.
What's that?
It's just going deeper and deeper.
Yeah. As I said, this is not. It's not going to be as easy as it before. All those are kind of theoretical, but now you are getting into more practical type of work. Okay. So today I'll try to cover maybe those 2 because I know I'm giving you a lot of information, so I don't want to confuse you. But just kind of remind me in the next session to let me cover those last 3.
Okay.
So today I'm gonna just kind of focus on select and distinct. So in the website, this is what I gave you, right? For your practice, you're gonna click on it. It will take you to here. Okay, this is where you're gonna practice. Okay, but the cool thing about it in this website, let me just kind of go there. So if you go here, I know, I think Irfan, but you already seen this website, right? W3 schools before. I think it's a very common one.
জি মনে হচ্ছে দেখছি
Okay.
জি
So I mean, I also, to be honest, guys, I'm also, because there, look at this, there are lots of syntax. Do I know all of them? No, I don't know all of them. Sometimes you have to rely on this website, and I kind of do it most of the time in my work. Sometimes I go here and see how this syntax is written, and then based on that I kind of modify my syntax in the real project. So this website is very helpful to practice the SQL. Very helpful. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna come here, you're gonna go to SQL tutorial. You will see all those different syntaxes. So basically what you're gonna do, you're gonna go SQL home. So if you need to know the introduction, you can go here. You will see the introduction. What is SQL? SQL stand for this. SQL lets you access them. And whatever I just said, they probably have more like more elaborate version. So you can kind of read through if you want. And then they will talk about syntaxes, what is syntax and all this. You see there's like, select, update, whatever I just covered. They probably have more stuff in it because they want to cover everything, but in my case I just want to focus you guys whatever you need to know. And then you will have select. So the select is what we're gonna learn. So what is select? Okay, so select statements is used to select data from a database. So I mean, simple thing. If you want to select, if I ask you, can you select this one, you have to just select or choose it, right?
Right.
This statement is used to select the data from a database. Simple. You cannot get more simpler than that. So the data return is stored as a result structure. So let's kind of get into the fun stuff. So think about it. This is a table. This is a real table. Okay. So in any company you're gonna work, if they ask you, can you go to a table and see what that table contains, they're probably gonna give you the table name. So in this case, the table name is what? The table name is can be customers. So
Right.
they call this table name as customers, right? So you will go to the table, you will see what those table contain. The table contain customer ID, name, all those customer information, whatever I just said, because that's what you expect, because the table name is customers. So if they tell you that, show me everything that table has, okay?
Right.
So what do you have to do? You have to write like that. Select is coming from the syntax star. Keep that in mind. Star means everything.
Okay.
So star means all the columns. If you guys want to write it down in your notebook or some other place, write it down. Star equal all the columns or everything. So whenever you hear people say select star, means select everything, every columns, all the columns, everything from table name. What is a table name? Customers. That means you don't have to go to that table like by browsing. You can just basically write it. You can basically write that syntax, and then you can kind of go it. So let me kind of show you that. I know Faisal, you already seen that. It's probably gonna be boring to you, but I think you just kind of refresh your memories. That will be good. Okay. So let's say this is the syntax you wrote, because based on what you know, based on this type of rule, what you're seeing, select star from table name. So table name is customers. So if somebody give you this information, you basically can come here, you're gonna write select star from customers, and then you will, there will be an option to run the SQL, which is very easy to find in the Toad. You're gonna click on run SQL. It will what? It will bring back every single columns that table has. Okay. So now let's say you want to just know 2 columns. You don't care about city, postal code, country. You don't care about anything. You only care about customer name. So what are you gonna write? You're gonna write select customer name. That's it. That's what you need to write, and that's what is gonna bring back the specific thing that you are looking for. So select customer name is only bring back the customer name. You see that?
Yeah.
So anything that you specify in here, select, that's what you're gonna bring back. Star, it's gonna bring back everything.
Everything.
So let's kind of go back again. So if you want to bring back customer ID and let's say customer name. So if you want to add more than 1 column, you have to put comma. Okay, keep that in mind. Most of the people get mistake it. They forget to put a comma, and the SQL never run. It will show you an error. So if you want to show you how it works, so look, I didn't put a comma. So it's saying syntax error, missing operator in query. So it will tell you something is missing, right? So you will get to it many times. So this can happen in many times. And Faisal, maybe you know that better than anybody because you've kind of gone through that too. So sometimes you write something, it's not working because you missed something. So
Yeah.
you have to basically debug, or you have to see what you missed out, and then when you put a comma, you will see everything is coming out. So
when we want to see a specific information from the database, then we have to just write it down, or we have to specify that, right?
exactly, you have to specify which column you want to see it. That way it will show you the result. So in this case, you want to see customer ID, customer name. So that you just have to put it select customer ID, customer name from customers. That's the basic select function. That's what the select is doing. Okay. So column example, look at that. They will have column, select customer name, city, the star means everything. That's what I said. Select all the columns. Look at that. All the columns. Star means so.
And from customer means the customer is, or the table name is
Table
customer.
name. So okay, so yes, that's good. Yeah, it's a table name. So in the interview, let's say if somebody asks you, so if you in the interview, if they ask you can you give an example using select syntax? This is a common interview question.
Okay.
So what are you gonna say? You have to say select star from table name, because they're not gonna tell you what is the table name. You have to say table name. Same thing. If they ask you, can you tell me how to select 2 columns from a table? Okay, this is the interview question. Keep it in mind. This is the interview question. Then you have to say select column 1, column 2 from table name. Okay, that's how you have to say during the interview. But when you practice, you need to define what is the column name, just the way I did here. You have to define column name, customer ID, customer name from customers. Is it clear? I know it's kind of
Select itself is not too bad actually. It's good.
So I mean, I think it's all about practice. I mean, now it's probably not clear to everybody, but to be honest, when you guys all sit together, not in a group study form, this is something you have to do all the time, guys, throughout this whole until the interview, because maybe Faisal, you already forget some of them, because if you don't practice, you're probably gonna forget. So this is another thing. You have to keep practicing it. If you right now, it's probably gonna make sense, but if you have to write a couple of weeks later, you may gonna forget.
The most important thing is this is the part that the most of the testers should like actually. this is actually most fun of it.
Yes.
Whatever I did, all of this, like this is the most fun of the
Yeah.
part.
Yeah, so that's true. I mean, that's most of the interview question we're gonna come from, and and if you do it well in SQL, to be honest, in the real job, you won't have any issue because SQL is very like common thing that people kind of look into it because they're gonna say, do you know how to write SQL? If you know, yes, I know how to write SQL, your job would be much easier. So that's very crucial. So the distinct, so the next one we have, what next one we have? Distinct, I guess. Yep, select distinct. So what does distinct mean? Okay, so distinct means it's unique type of data. It's not duplicate, distinct. So in this case, you have to use distinct syntax, right? So distinct statement used to return only distinct. Distinct is unique or different value. Okay. So good example would be, let's go back here. Let me just put star. So let's see. So this customer, so in here, the primary key is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the primary key, right? This is the unique value in the column. Customer ID is the primary key. But if you look at that, they probably have two customers is living in Mexico, right? But you want to know, is there only one customer? I want to know distinct country. So how many countries in this table? Distinct means unique, because in this column, if you look at it, look, there's 2 Mexico, 1 UK, Sweden. There's probably more here. So there are lot of duplicate name or duplicate value. So if you want to know distinct, if you want to know the unique country that are in this table, you have to use distinct. So what are you gonna do? You have to say distinct country, and then you're gonna run it, right? So in that way, if you just do it, it will show you the distinct country. You won't see any duplicate country. Look at that. In before example, it was showing 2 Mexico, right? Now you'll only see Mexico once. EFGHJK. Look, the Mexico is
Do we
just
have to write select before distinct?
yes, right. Select is going to be used everywhere. I mean, 90% of the syntaxes select is going to be used.
Okay.
With select, you have to add additional syntax most of the time. So in this case, if you want to know distinct country, that's what you have to use, distinct country. So in the interview, if they ask you, can you tell me an example of using distinct syntax, you're going to say select distinct column name from table name. Perfect. That's going to be good enough. Is it clear?
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna kind of stop here now. Let me just stop recording.
Yeah, brother.